Today, I get the honor of sitting down with powerhouse leader, entrepreneur, and mom of three, Morgan Kline, the co-founder and CEO of Burn Bootcamp. I've mentioned many times that I've been a member of Burn Bootcamp for 2 years now and how much I enjoy the Burn experience. So getting to sit down and talk business, relationships, mindset, and babies with Morgan is truly a special opportunity for me. Back in 2012, Morgan and her husband, Devin, started Burn with nothing more than a vision and a few workouts in a parking lot. At the time, she was still climbing the corporate ladder at Kellogg's, but it wasn't long until she felt called to something bigger. She eventually made the leap, left her safe corporate career, and went all in on building and expanding Burn. Fast forward to today, Burn Bootcamp has grown to over 400 physical locations nationwide and is now valued at $500 million. In 2022, Morgan officially stepped into the role of CEO, becoming the first woman to lead the brand she helped create. And in this conversation, we are going to dive into how she made the leap from corporate to entrepreneurship, navigating imposter syndrome, what it's really like to build and lead a business of this scale alongside her husband, and the ways that she balances CEO life with motherhood. So get ready. This one's going to inspire you to take bold leaps, embrace life's challenges, and build the life you are called to with integrity at your own pace. Enjoy. All right, I am sitting here with somebody who I admire so much, and I have been a user of your product, your service for a couple of years now, and I love it so much. Welcome to All In with Allie, Morgan Kline.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. And thanks for being a Burn member.
Yes. Okay, so let me tell you about that.
Yeah,
so, we have had, so I live in Mount Juliet, and Burn has been there for a while. It's been there for, I don't know how many years, but it was there a few years before I ever joined.
2017 rings a bell to me because I actually opened that gym with my husband. So I think it was 2017.
Really? Okay. So did you like come in town to open it?
That was a company-owned location. So we have franchises, and then we have a portfolio that we keep, that we own. And then we sold it to the head trainer, and it's since been sold again. So, but that was one that we seeded in the Nashville market because we wanted to get more gyms and more brand awareness. So that's typically one of our strategies. So yeah,
that is
I'm
so
very
cool.
familiar with that gym.
Okay. Yeah. So it had been there for a while, and we had drove past it. I live close to that location. And finally I got to switch things up with my own workout routine. And I don't know. It was just like, I'm going to try out Burn. We'll see how it goes. And I fell in love. And what I love about Burn so much, and I talk about Burn all the time in the podcast because I believe women should be strength training personally. I believe in a good mixture of workouts. We all need cardio. I think women especially need to be lifting some weights. And the reason why I'm still at Burn to this day, even though I'm somebody who typically gets bored, is because every single day you go in and it's a different workout.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I am obsessed because you always keep your body guessing. You're never bored. And anyway, so I started going a couple of years ago, fell in love with the trainers, fell in love with just the overall energy of the space. And I'm an advocate. I love it. So well done. Good job.
Yeah, all of that stuff is designed intentionally, and I have been doing it since we started, obviously, and I still get challenged to this day, and I think that is a testament to the way we program and the way that we've committed to never doing the same workouts and never just getting stagnant and pushing play. And that's our commitment to the future too, is like continue to challenge people, whether they've been a member for 12 years or for one day. We want to make sure that workout is challenging them exactly where they're at. So I love to always hear how that's really happening out in the marketplace.
Yeah, it's working very well. Well, I want to hear your backstory. I want to hear of course, take us back. I know it, but I want the listeners to hear it because you guys are now this year at 600 locations. How many?
We have 600 awarded locations. So a little bit, just around 400 that are open and operating. And then we have over 200 more that are coming online in the next 2 to 3 years, just based on their development schedule.
Okay. That is so gangster.
Yeah.
How?
It's really something I did not think would be something I talk about, and I'll take you back to really, let me go back to even childhood. I grew up in Battle Creek, Michigan, which is Cereal City. So if anyone's not familiar, Kellogg's is headquartered in Battle Creek, Michigan. So my whole family is from there. My husband's from there. We actually met in 6th grade. And I know we're going to talk about that, later in the podcast about just our journey together as well. But I grew up smelling cereal every morning or Saturday mornings. I grew up with also, though, the American dream. Part of that was in my eyes, working for a corporate company. And what better than Kellogg's, the company that was right in my backyard. I know a lot of people that worked there. My grandfather worked there. And so I went and pursued my food marketing degree at Western Michigan, which is about 30 minutes from my hometown. And I went into food marketing and CPG. So that's right up my alley to try to get a job at Kellogg's. And I was so grateful. I knew somebody that helped me get an internship my junior year, my senior year, got a job right out of college to move to Naples, Florida. And that was a huge step for me. But I was all in. I was ready to climb the corporate ladder. And nothing was going to get in my way. I was more of a homebody through college, but once college was up, I was ready to, spread my wings and fly. So I moved down to Naples, Florida. I did not know anyone, barely. I think I knew a couple people that were in that area, and got my own apartment, got my job. I was a sales rep for Kellogg, selling Pop-Tarts and cereal to over 100 different, grocery stores in the Southwest area. And so I quickly got promoted up to Charlotte. And I'll share a little bit about the story too, because Devin was my boyfriend at the time. We were in a long distance relationship. We went to different colleges. Devin was a baseball player. That was his plan A, right? I wanted to go corporate life. He wanted to be a professional baseball player. And he was traveling all over. So we were long distance, but I didn't let that get in my way. I've always been a fairly independent woman. And I was like, okay, you do you, I'm going to do me. So long story short, when I moved to Naples, he did move there on the off season. And then when he was released, he finally moved in with me. He started doing fitness as his next job. And again, still didn't really know what he wanted to do because his plan A was baseball. And I got promoted to Charlotte about 18 months after living in Naples to work for their sales office. And that was great. I was doing what I kind of set out to do, is just continue to get promoted every 18 months to 2 years. I had seen that pathway. And, Devin came to Charlotte and was like, I'm not going to open my own, or I'm not going to work for anybody. He'd worked for Big Box Gym, and he was a personal trainer. So one-on-one, and he just really saw the things that he didn't love about that model. He didn't love about Big Box Gym. And we were taking a lot of those learnings into what will now be Burn Bootcamp. But still at that time, 2012, I was like, okay, you go start your business. I'm going to keep my corporate job and I will, support us. I still had no thought process that I would ever leave and give up this safe and secure corporate job.
Yeah.
But, as Devin was growing and developing Burn Bootcamp in a parking lot in 2012, I was there alongside him, on the weekends, in the mornings, late at night, away from, basically, if it wasn't 9 to 5, I was with him doing Burn Bootcamp stuff. I even went and got my CPT and became a trainer just to give him some relief. And that's where then the light bulbs started going off for me. And, I'm spending my day talking about cereal and Pop-Tarts. And then I'm spending my evenings and weekends talking about healthy, nutrition and working out and taking care of your body. And so I started to become very conflicted. And, Devin was like, please just quit your job and let's do this together. Let's go all in. I need you. And so finally, after a lot of thinking about it, we got engaged. I needed that to happen before I was going to get my job up. We got engaged, and, I told myself, why not take a chance? If it doesn't work, I can always go and find a new job and apply for Kellogg's again or whatever it needed to be. And so, yeah, that was in early 2013. I quit my job, started our second brick and mortar Burn Bootcamp in Cornelius, North Carolina. I was the head trainer, and I built my own community alongside Devin building it about 10 miles down the road in Huntersville, which is where we opened our first location. So yeah, big jump, right? Big jump from this secure job, which, America will tell you, to get this great job that has insurance benefits and a 401k and all of the things. And I had that, and I was super proud of it. And, I liked my job, but I could just tell that my heart wasn't in it anymore. And I wasn't feeling that fulfillment and that drive to like go do something in corporate life that I could be doing for myself. And so, I say all those things, like entrepreneurship wasn't something that I thought was in my future, but I have, stumbled upon it and continued to build what that looks like, build what leadership looks like. And, I can't wait to obviously talk more about that, but that's a little backstory of me. And all the way to now, Devin and I have 3 children. We live in the Lake Norman area, and we started franchising about 3 years after we opened our own gyms. And we went from 5 of our own locations in Charlotte to now just under 400 locations in 44 states, another 200 or so to be developed. And, obviously so much growth in between. And it's been awesome. It's been a very quick and crazy journey, but there's still so much more for us to accomplish. And so I'll chat about that today.
It's so fascinating to me. You going from, y'all started Burn in a parking lot. Mm-hmm. And let me ask you about even that. So you guys were looking at these big box gyms, didn't love how they were being run. So mm-hmm. instead of piggybacking off of an existing successful brand, mm-hmm. was it Devin who was like, I think I can do this better. I think I have a better idea to essentially start what would be Burn?
Yes, 100%. He's true the visionary.
Fascinating.
It continues to be that role today, is kind of always looking ahead. And I think, he has this belief in himself and in others that made him a really great personal trainer too, first. But then this has also made him a really great entrepreneur and business builder, because he sees this vision, he sees the unseen, and it's sometimes crazy and it's sometimes far-fetched. And that's really where I've been able to come in and say, like, yes or no. Yeah, yes, we can do this. And so I'm kind of the brake to his gas. But I think over time we've figured out how those complement each other. And so, yes, I have to give him the credit to say, we can do this better. And then I think with me being a female and then a mom and then having multiple kids, I've been really been able to influence how we've evolved as a brand and the messaging and, how we do show up. But he had that vision from the beginning.
And what is it like? Because I'm going to loop back to you leaving corporate, because there's something so fascinating about that too. But it's just mind blowing how you go from this idea and I think we can do this better. And, 1 brick and mortar, and then you leave your job at 2 brick and mortars to now 600, eventually 400 physical locations. When you say that out loud, like at what point in the journey were you guys even thinking that big? Were y'all thinking that big in the beginning? Was it Devin who was like, hey, I think we can, we could take over America. We could take over the globe with Burn. Like at what point were you like, wait a second, this is going to get really big?
I would say no, not necessarily in the beginning where we like, yep, we're going to have this many locations by this many years and, we're going to take over the globe. I would say when we started franchising our documents and getting our processes ready in 2014, ahead of our 15 launch of the franchise, we were working with this gentleman and he was kind of a consultant of ours. And he's like, yeah, 3 in the first year, like awarding 3 territories in the first year will be really good. We did almost 180 in the first 18 months. So I think when we had the mindset of like 3 in the first year, and I think we did 3 in the first week, we kind of were like, oh, okay. And then it just continued and continued. And so right around like 2016, about a year in, we invested heavily in our payroll, over $1 million of payroll, just to build our infrastructure, because we didn't expect to go that quickly. And we knew we did not want to be a brand that just awarded a bunch of locations, but never saw them to be open. There's brands that will do that. They'll take your money, they'll take your franchise fee. And then if you open, you open. If you don't, you don't. And we just knew we didn't want that to be part of our legacy. So we've always invested now ahead of our growth curve, because to us, we know where we want to go. There's, over 1,500 locations in the US that we think a Burn could be in and be successful based on now our mapping systems and, taking demographic information and just really understanding where we can be. So now we've been able to kind of order our steps for the future, I guess you could say, and make sure we're equipped for that. But in the beginning, absolutely not. It was a little chaotic, a little crazy, but bringing the team in was super helpful for us to make sure that it was sustainable.
Well, if you build it, they will come. And that's it. It's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And I talk about this a lot on my own podcast, because there are so many people who are afraid to invest and afraid to bet and go all in and build it before the people are there. But what you're saying is like, no, we saw the potential and we invested in that before it was there. And then boom, the grid filled in essentially.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think there's always a balance to that, right? And because you don't want to paralyze yourself and be like, well, I can't push go until I do have all these things in order. But yeah, I could say so much about that, but that is what's been successful for us, is taking a bet on yourself, taking a risk, and just knowing that it is going to happen, right? Because you're in it for the right reasons.
I want you to say more about that anything you have to say, because even you leaving your job, y'all starting this business. And I love this man, this consultant who's like, 3 in the first year and you're like, LOL, 3 in the first week.
Yeah.
So talk to me, like what comes through when you look backwards? Cause that's where the gold is. Cause y'all are at this not even peak in your business. You have this, I think I saw, I don't know if it's accurate. I don't know if you want to, confirm or deny, $500 million valuation in Burn. Yeah. I mean, now looking back, talk to me, talk to me about the faith, talk to me about the energy, talk to me about going first. What comes through that if you could go back in time and tell yourself like, yes, do that, or no, don't do that. What comes through?
I think that, first of all, I have zero regrets. People do ask me, what would you do differently? And I'm a big believer in always answering this question pretty consistently, that I wouldn't do anything differently. Like as far as making decisions or, deciding to take a risk on something or take a chance on something. Because I just truly believe that failures and successes, they all are these lessons that have gotten me to this place. Like as much as I wish I could go back and shoot some confidence in my left arm or shoot some belief in my right arm. I needed to experience all those things, whether that was setbacks, whether that was betrayal from people, whether that was bad actors, and all those things have gotten me to where I'm at today. And so I think if you're starting something, don't try to control so much of it. Whatever's meant to be, and I know this is cliche, but what's meant to come at you, is meant to come at you for a reason, for you to get through it. So on the other side, you're a better woman, a more confident leader, and you're more certain about your business and where you want the business to go. Because, that's one thing that Devin and I have always been very mission driven, and that mission has not changed. So we are mission driven and we're value aligned. So core values and mission haven't changed since the beginning. And that's what's helped us say yes to things and no to things. And those core values, they show up a little bit differently in the different levels of our organization. So they show differently for leadership, a little bit differently for employees, differently for our franchisees, for a member, for an employee of a member. The behaviors of those core values just show up differently. But if we're not aligned in why we want to do this and the people that want to do it with us, if we don't have that alignment, then say no. and don't be afraid to walk away from something if it doesn't feel right. And when you're getting started, there can be so much confusion and noise and shiny things and like comparison. And so that's what I think most people get stuck on. They get stuck comparing themselves to others. They get stuck squirreling with like, oh, well, then they're doing that. Let me do that. Let me chase that shiny thing. I will say I'm very proud of how disciplined Devin and I have stayed when it comes to putting our blinders on and saying, okay, we're going to do it at our pace. Like, yeah, maybe over here, this brand, and I'll say the brand, but it's another fitness brand that has just exploded in the US and they were going faster than us. And that could have been very easily us being like, how do we do it? What are they doing differently than we are? Like, and we decided to stay focused. And now, there's a ton of litigation against this brand and they're crumbling a little bit, And so that's like, oh, okay. Yeah. That's why we didn't want to chase them. So, just to kind of wrap that up in a bow, I wouldn't do anything differently if I was Morgan in 2012, kind of starting this journey again. But what I wish I did have was like the confidence, because that's something that I did have to learn a lot, the worthiness and the confidence in every role that I've played, right? With the latest one, stepping into CEO, it's this worthiness issue. And like, that's the one thing that I wish I could give back to myself. But I also know I needed to go through some of those hardships and just self-reflection and self-work to really make it who I am.
I love how you just said that you wouldn't don't try and control it so much.
Yeah.
Take the lessons, take even the bad actors in this situation, like everything. And I believe this too. And in the moment we forget it, because in the moment these things suck a lot of the times.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, why did that not go so well? Why is this person being this way? Why did that have to happen? Why do I feel embarrassed right now? Why don't I feel worthy right now? But in hindsight, you realize these are all opportunities to strengthen and to build the woman that you are today, the woman that I am today.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned, you being the CEO of this brand that you helped build from scratch, that is now giant, and you have this massive trajectory. How do you handle that? What's the imposter syndrome like? And what do you do? Is there personal development that you do? Is your job just the personal development? You're like, it's going to handle it for me. What does that look like?
Yeah, a lot of both, but definitely personal development for me. So previous to CEO, I took that role 3 years ago. I was the COO. So I was alongside Devin still, and we kind of split up our leadership team and split up like the departments in our office. So he took half and I took half, let's just say that. But it created a lot of whiplash in the organization, because like mom would say one thing and then dad would say another thing. And Devin is a true visionary, where then people management, he's a great leader, but like to manage people and manage process and to manage, I would say, priorities even, is sometimes challenging for somebody that's a visionary, because every idea is a great idea, or they sometimes can't wait to see things all the way through. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Like, I'll never say anything bad about visionaries, because every organization needs one, or else they're going to slowly die. So when he was CEO, I was COO, we just could see that conflict a lot between even each other, between our teams, like not all being on the same page. And so then you lose a lot of productivity in that way. And so Devin was really the one that we read the book Rocket Fuel by, it's in the EOS library. And so I don't know if you're familiar with EOS, but it's the entrepreneurial operating system. And they've got Gino Wickman, it's Traction, but Rocket Fuel was the book that we both read. And it talks about a visionary of a company and an integrator. And it was Devin and Morgan to a T. Yeah. And so I think that book was like our aha to shift our roles and to put me into CEO and to hire a really great COO to backfill me. And then he doesn't have any direct reports. So he kind of works with me and Amber, my COO, to give us vision. And then we take that and integrate it within the organization. But going back to kind of your question, I wanted to make sure I explained kind of how I got to this position. Prior to that, I think every role that I have stepped into has been a little bit of that imposter syndrome, starting with being a personal trainer back in 2013. I had a lot of body issues. You know, I didn't even have kids yet. I had an amazing body. It was beautiful. If I look back to those photos, I mean, gosh, I would kill to have like that now, you know, but
every woman is like, yep.
My young 20s, much like a lot of women, I was picking myself apart. I felt like I wasn't defined, like my muscles weren't defined enough. I didn't have a six pack. My stomach was as flat as it should be. You know, I told all these things in my head, and I actually took it to an extreme. I went and I submitted myself into a bikini contest. I was like running like 5 to 8 miles a day, doing Burn Bootcamp. I was eating 1,200 calories. I took myself down this destructive path ahead of me quitting my job, thinking I needed to come in and be this like powerhouse trainer that looks this way. Okay. And so I went down that destructive path, and I was like, okay, I need to be this. I need to fit into this box that looks like a personal trainer better. And about 8 weeks down the line, I lost my period. I didn't have enough energy to even do Burn Bootcamp. Like I was exhausting myself. And I'm like, what am I like? I had an aha moment, thank God, that I was like, what am I doing? You know, what am I doing? I am completely acting in a different way. That's not even who I am. I'm not being authentic to Morgan. And I'm supposed to be a leader of women that are going to walk into my gym and they're going to see this unrealistic version of me that I can't even keep up with. Like, and I had that aha that's like, no, you're not going to lead the brand this way. And I think since then I have just stayed committed and stayed true to that aha, even though I've had my own insecurities, is like, no, you're going to walk into it and you're going to lead people authentically, even if it's not perfect, even if you mess up, you're going to embrace all the things, right? You're going to embrace what postpartum and pregnancy looks like. You're going to share that with your audience. You're going to share the struggles of motherhood and building a business. And I just have made that commitment to myself to always be open. But every role I've played, I'm like, I'm stepping into something so new. I've never done it. I don't really have a direct mentor to help me do all this. And because I'm young and I hadn't really networked. And so I just did a lot of it with just being open and honest and being exactly who I want to be, because I want to be proud of that. I want to be, proud that my kids see the real version of me, that you just be who you are, and the right people are going to come. The right people are going to be attracted to you. But CEO, it happened again, where I remember about maybe a month or two into the role, I sat down across from Devin with tears streaming down my face saying, I don't think I can do this. I think you should find another CEO. And I don't remember, going back, I don't know what necessarily led me to those tears in that moment. I don't remember that, but I just know I felt a lot of pressure, and I felt scared. I felt nervous. I did not feel worthy. But he's like, nope, it's you. Like, it's always been you, and it needs to be you, and it can't be anyone else, and you can do this, and he spoke that belief into me, and I snapped out of it, several days later. But it happens to all of us. And it's not something I'm ashamed of, because I know that it happens to the women in my brand when they quit their jobs to come be a Burn Bootcamp owner, or they have their first kid or their second kid. And like, this is part of life where we do feel scared to take on a role that's maybe bigger than we ever thought of ourselves. But again, like, if you surround yourself with the right people, like, that are going to build you up, they're going to cheer you on. Like, you just got to take it one day at a time, one step forward at a time. And that's what I continue to do. And I feel over the last 3 years, I have developed this new belief in myself that, yeah, I am meant to do this. And I don't want some other person running this brand that thinks they know better than I do, because I've been here the longest, and I know our member, and I know our franchise partners, and I'm still meant to be in this role to build even a stronger foundation for when I am ready to move on, because I will be someday. And that's great. Like, you always want to think about what's next for you. And so, yeah, I just think you got to do it anyways. You got to do the hard stuff, and you can't be afraid to mess up, and you got to give yourself a lot of grace. But I think who you have around you is incredibly important, because I could have said that out loud, which is hard to do. But I said it to somebody that I knew wasn't going to take advantage of that vulnerability and build me up instead. And so that's key.
It just seems like Burn has this through line of authenticity and integrity. And what you just said shows that, it's like, okay. And even back to what you said about comparing you guys to other brands who might be growing a little bit faster and how easy it is to do that. I mean, especially with social media, and for the business owners listening, all we are watching are the highlight reels of the people around us. But what you just said is so poignant. It's just like, okay, it doesn't have to look like everybody else. Just because everybody else's CEO is, at this level, and maybe they've been CEO of different companies and maybe they do things different ways. It's almost like a unique family system, like you guys made this baby, and this baby requires parents and a team and an environment that's very specific to the baby. It's very similar. And it's like you and Devin are these parents, and it's perfect. And there are some days you don't feel equipped to do the job, but you were called to it for a reason. And I love that he was able to lift you up in that moment. And no doubt you do the same for him. And I want to talk about y'all's relationship, because that is, I mean, since 6th grade, fascinating. So, okay, there's so much I want to ask about that. First and foremost, how do y'all do this? How do you work together in such a close capacity? You've now done it for years. You guys have 3 kids together. You have this giant brand and business. You're both navigating these roles. You especially, you're navigating this semi-newish role still.
Yep.
You have all of this pressure and this responsibility. You showed your calendar on your stories the other day, and I got the sweats just looking at your calendar. I was like, how does she do it? So how do you do it? And I want to focus mainly on your marriage and your relationship. How do y'all make that work? Because that's not easy by any stretch of the imagination.
It's not easy. And so, communication at the core, I will say, is key. And there's been years that Devin and I did not have good communication, and it was very chaotic. And we were a little bit more operating like coworkers and roommates than, husband and wife and parents and all of the things. And not for a full year, but there's those moments, right?
Yeah.
And you have to have really, really good self-awareness and also work on yourself. And that's like sometimes very hard for people. It's easy to blame like others or your spouse when things aren't going well, but we both have had to like look in the mirror and be like, okay, well, how am I contributing? And how am I making sure that things are running smoothly? So communication is key for Devin and I, both personally and professionally. And that's something we've invested in. We've invested in communication. Like, we've actually done self-development courses. We did a course with nonviolent communication, which seems scarier than it is, but it's a great way to not judge people and not communicate through judgment and communicate through observation and feelings. And so that is something we've incorporated both in our office and at home. We have to be very our calendar is our Bible. So yes, I showed my calendar, and that had all the things like, Devin, you're picking up from here. Morgan's picking up from here. Like right now.
Oh, so it's that specific. Okay.
It's very specific right now. Okay. In this season of life, we have 3 children. They all have, baseball or dance. So every night, Monday through Friday, is something of our kids. And that's okay. It's just, this is the light. I kind of expected this at some point, where it's like we're dividing and conquering, because this is important to Devin and I to be very present parents. So yes, I've had help. I've had nannies. I'm in between nannies right now, which also makes our calendar very crazy, because it's just him and I navigating this. We don't have family around us. But I would never be able to do all I do without the help that I do have. And I think that's important to share. We're very privileged to be able to afford a nanny, to be able to help with cleaning the house, folding laundry. I use Shipt, or my nanny would use Shipt. And make sure there's food always in the house. We have an assistant on the business side that helps us schedule everything and keep our lives on track, which I don't think you can operate at this capacity without something like that, because it would be incredibly chaotic.
There's no way.
Yeah, you have to delegate your time. I'm a big believer in that. You have to delegate your time. You have to be able to only do the things that you can do. And for me, that's no one else can be a mom to my kids, and no one else can be the CEO that has the CEO responsibility. So if I'm looking at my calendar and I'm saying yes to things that don't align with those two of the biggest priorities, then it has to be no. You have to learn to say no to others, or to say, hey, what do you think? Can you do this? Like, if you're asking me to answer questions, I'm going to push it back to you, and we're going to learn together how to make the best decision. And that's skills that you have to develop, over time. If you want to build an empire and you want to build a business that's much bigger than yourself, everything can't go through you. And that's another level of control that I've had to give up over time, because I do like control. I'll be honest. I like predictability, and I need certainty in my life. And so I've recognized that, and that can come out in being controlling or being a micromanager. And I've had to learn, how do I channel that in a productive way, where I've given the trust to this team I've built, and they have these systems in place. Devin and I are best friends at the core of everything. We love each other so much. We love what we've built together. We're building a legacy. This is not a business we want to just build and exit. We want it to be a part of who we are and what we've stood for, and when we're on this earth. And so we're just a team. And if we don't operate as teammates, then we see the impact that has on so many things in our lives. And we carry that weight, and we know it. We're very aware of it. And so if we're not on the same field and building this like fortress protection around us, then we see how that's going to impact our children. That's going to impact our employees. That's going to impact all the people that invested in Burn Bootcamp. And we don't take that lightly. So we really invest in each other. We make sure that, we're always on a good page together. And when we're not, we've created some systems that just help us connect and communicate on where each other's falling short. But, I have to be super self-aware that it's not just him, and he has to be aware that it's not just me. We got to come together much like a team would to say, okay, how do we get back on the same page? So, but I think I don't know life without working with Devin anymore. The thought of going to an office and me going to an office for like 9 hours and then like seeing each other back at the end of the day would actually make me sad. I enjoy him. I enjoy being around him. And to be honest, a lot of people think we work together like all day, every day. Like, I'm in meetings all day. He's doing I'm on this podcast right now. He's at this office right now. Like, we do still have some separation. He travels a lot more than I do. He goes out to our locations. That's super fulfilling for him. So we still have a dynamic where we're not doing everything together, because we've built it that way, where I'm really running the day to day, and then he's kind of tapping in. He has, specific things that he taps in, but it's not everything. So I think that helps too, that we're not on top of each other, trying to kind of compete for time and attention. But yeah, along the way, we've had to build in like 4-hour check-ins and on a Friday afternoon where computers are down, and we're talking to things on the business, not in the business. We're talking about the kids. We're talking about marriage. Like, we're intentional about carving out time. And if you don't do that, then you're kind of just letting life go by very quickly, because it will.
Yeah.
Before you know it, you turn into those roommates, and that's something that we don't ever want to experience again.
Thank you for sharing that. You piqued my interest with this. Well, this whole thing is insane, but like this 4-hour check-in, that's so specific. Do y'all still do that?
Yeah, so we do, but it's a little bit more professional now, because we've brought our COO into that meeting. But It's called the same page meeting, and it's again part of EOS and Traction. And so we would do ours once a month, and it would be the visionary and the integrator. And obviously for us, that's when we would integrate our check-ins with ourselves. Okay. Devin and I now have a different time that we do that for our personal stuff, but we still have those 4-hour meetings with the COO, just to all be on the same page. And then Devin and I spend that time like in the sauna or early in the morning where we're kind of checking in with one another from a marriage perspective.
Love.
Also, I'm very big on Sunday nights. We sit down and look at our calendars and we talk about, again, kids stuff,
Here's
work
what's going
stuff.
on.
Here's what's going on. And that has helped us a ton.
What is it? Okay. What are some, for the moms that are listening who are either business owners or holding their careers, do you have any other, for our moms who are trying to do both? And you're such an example of this, of not both, but you're wearing many hats. You're a wife, you're a mom to 3 babies. You have a massive team that you're living. You have the behind the scenes of the business. You have the brand. And then I'm sure there's some time, maybe a little bit of time for a personal life in there, I'm hoping too.
Yeah.
So for the moms that are listening, or just women in general that also desire to have these multiple and wear these multiple hats and do it well, what are your favorite, are there any other tools? I love getting down to the specifics, the tangible tools, tricks on how to hold these multiple worlds. Is there a favorite calendar that you like? Is there a book that you read on how to do that? A hire that was a game changer for you? Or was it just some of the things that you already mentioned?
I think a lot of what I already mentioned, I wish there was a book that I could have read that kind of helped with this. Yeah. But there's some things that come to mind for me is the word balance is not my favorite word, because I do get that a lot as well. Like, how do you balance it all? And I don't think balance is a real thing. Balance is equal, right? So it's 50-50. So let's say, how do you balance motherhood and career? Well, it's never 50-50. I have days that it's 90-10. I have days that it's 20-80, like, right? And so I've learned to zoom out. Don't look at every day from a parenting and a professional perspective.
Love that.
Because you're going to probably let yourself down. We all lay in bed at night and say, how could I have done this day better? How could I have been a better mom? Maybe you're thinking about something that did happen at work. Zoom out of the day-to-day, zoom out into a week even, and say, okay, how did I do this week from a motherhood and a career perspective? Like, how did I balance that week, which some days is going to be towards one and maybe others towards another. And that's kind of where it's helped my perspective shift a little bit, because kids aren't remembering a day-to-day. Like,
it's true.
Most of the guilt comes because we're afraid we're not giving our children enough, but our children aren't looking, they're not laying in bed at night and saying, well, mom didn't do this, and
Mom really sucked today.
Yeah. Like, I mean, at least I don't think they're doing that. Maybe when they get older, they will.
Yeah.
Well, I will find out, but I don't think they are. And so, but obviously if week after week, I'm not pouring into them, that's when it is going to notice. So I'm more of like a check-in on a weekly basis. And I've been able to be much more open with my kids now. They're 9, 7, and 5, which my 9-year-old is a daughter, like she's a girl. And so we talk about a lot of this. Like, even now with my 5-year-old, if mom has to go on a trip, like, I'm explaining, I've always been big on telling them where I'm going, why I'm going there, and who I'm helping, like how am I serving the brand by going there? And then I'm also very big on giving them perspective of why it's important that I do work. And, hey, look around, look at the amazing things that we have in our life. We live in a great house. You guys are able to do travel baseball and dance. And, I'm big on mom has to work for this stuff. And so does dad, of course. Like, mom and dad, they go to work, but then also like sharing with them this legacy that we want to build and how we're helping people and why it's important that we're helping people get healthier and more confident and stronger. And we just opened a concept called Kids Camp. So like now their experience mini boot camp for kids, basically. And they're like the light bulbs are going off for them on what we're building and how we're sharing it. My kids go on trips with us, so they can even see outside of our bubble of Lake Norman Gym. They get to see other burns in the nation and go in there and go into Child Watch. So I want to intertwine my stuff, right? Back to your question, like, if you want to wear all these hats, well, how can you build harmony within all of them and not try to like operate in silos? Because when you operate in silos, then you do really feel like you're neglecting something. And so, of course, I am very intertwined. My husband and I do it together. It's a brand that I can bring my kids to. It's a family brand. Like, so I do have a lot stacked up on my side to help me integrate and make it harmony. But I think if if you're doing a job that you can't also include your kids, maybe is that the right thing for you? You know, is that, do you feel in alignment with how you want to operate? And you got to ask yourself that question. So I think that shift has helped me a lot, is to just not be so hard on myself on a day-to-day, not believe that balance is achievable. It's about prioritizing too. You know, I said this already, but what are you saying yes to that you need to be saying no to? Because if at the end of the day, I don't feel like I have enough time for my husband, my kids, and I'm too busy and I can't focus on the things I need to focus on to make me the best, I'm saying yes to too many things. Or I need to start building a team around me. I need people to take work off of me so I am not overloaded. Because what's the point of doing all this if you can't even leave room for your kids or your husband, the things that you're doing it for? And like, listen, in the beginning, I was giving a lot more. Even when my kids were younger, I could get away with it in a way. But now, like, this season of life, every season of life, I've got to just reshift and reprioritize. And if that means I need to build something differently, that it's not centered around me and I'm the linchpin, then that's what I'm going to do. That I'm not going to build something that takes me away from my purpose.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Yeah. This idea of balance. And I love what you said about not looking at it from a day-to-day micro moment perspective. Yeah. Zoom out. We're all going to have good and bad days, but remembering why we're doing it, you know, who we're doing this for is really important. You know, that whole cliche saying of like, you know, when you're on your deathbed, what are you going to think about? And it's true, but work is part of that because that's what's going to lend you to the life. And it does get to integrate at some level.
Yeah.
So
and
thank you for that.
Things I'll say about that is you were talking, it kind of reminded me with the perspective, you have to have a long-term perspective as well. Yeah. And sometimes we get so short-sighted, short-minded, and we want something now. So we think we have to go sacrifice everything to have it now. But if you're thinking about long-term, you're thinking about building a legacy, you know, legacies are going to happen over decades. So sometimes too, we set these expectations for ourselves. They're so short-sighted. And so that has also helped shift things for me. Like, I don't need to accomplish it right now, right? I can accomplish this in the future is another question I always kind of ask myself as well. And also be proud of your work. I think there is a lot, you know, I can even feel triggered sometimes when I hear a lot about like even stay-at-home moms and how could you ever leave your babies? And, you know, some of that stuff does sting at times when you first hear it, because it probably is some sort of trigger in my mind because I want to make sure I'm doing enough for my kids. But I've really tried to tell myself, no, Morgan, be proud of the work you've done. Yes, you've sacrificed time away from your babies, but you are also showing them something that you couldn't otherwise show them. And that is not a dig or anything negative about somebody that does choose to stay at home, because you're going to be teaching them different lessons because of the sacrifice that you made. But I've chosen this path. So I'm going to be proud of it. And I'm going to show them what hard work looks like and how serving others can be a very positive thing, and what, you know, sacrifice does look like. Kids need to see what sacrifice looks like. That's because we're going to have to experience it at some point. Otherwise, they're going to have a rude awakening when they go into the real world and they think, oh, you know, I have to actually work and to get money and to have all these things that my parents had. So that's just my viewpoint of it. And it helps me. And I hope that doesn't offend anybody, because I think stay-at-home moms are like, that is the toughest and hardest job.
Great.
And it's beautiful if you're able to do that. But there also is a whole group of women that either have to work or choose to work because it fulfills something on them. And I think that's to be celebrated as well. So let's just be proud of both of those pathways, because we're able to show our kids, you know, lessons in that.
Thank you so much for saying that. And what you said too, of being proud about that, because it's not helpful if you choose this path and then you're beating yourself up every day because you're not staying home with your kids. It's just like how you are the perfect CEO for Burn right now, and Devin's the perfect visionary for the massive brand that y'all built. Y'all are the perfect parents for your children. So what lights you up? To me, I think it's all on purpose and by design, based on what your kids, your unique children need to see to lead their own lives one day.
Exactly.
So I think trusting those desires and trusting that and not beating yourself up over it is huge, because now we're just wasting time and energy and it's not necessary.
Exactly. And you're in control. So if you don't feel proud or you don't feel in alignment anymore, like, you have the ability to go make that change and design your life the way you want to. Just my
Absolutely.
belief.
Period. Okay, let me see how much time we have. So we did get some rapid fire questions from the audience. Okay, let's get to those, because there was a couple of really good ones. Then if we have time, I'll ask one more of my own. So some questions that were submitted from the audience. This is a big one, I know, and I'm just putting it on you, but maybe something will come to mind. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Okay.
I know.
What?
You're like, thanks a lot.
I've gotten a lot of advice. I just think the best advice that comes to mind is through one of my friends, Brooke Thomas. She's just been a champion of Burn from the beginning. She's also been a big supporter of my faith journey and really helped me through my relationship with God. And she just has always spoke this life into me that, like, you were meant for this. You were meant to carry all of this, and you have exactly what it takes. It's inside of you. You just got to let it keep coming out. And I just think that's probably belief in somebody else is so powerful. And that's what we do every day at Burn is, personal trainers or even your Burn sisters it's belief in others that, hey, you can do hard things today and you can pick up heavier weights than you think. And I think when I've gotten that spoken into me, that kind of life and that just belief into me, I think that's been the best advice I could get, because it reinforces to me to stay on my path and to not give up.
Great answer.
And to trust my gut. That's the other one.
Oh, gosh. Okay, yes.
The best advice I can give anybody is to trust your gut. And every time I've not listened to my gut, it always works itself out, but it's much harder when you ignore your gut.
It takes a little bit longer than it should. Me and my husband, Chris, were just talking about this. Yes. Yeah. Amen. Great advice. Okay. I know you mentioned Rocket Fuel, but is there another book that has changed your life? They're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I read that book.
From a business perspective, I think Traction, Rocket Fuel, and The Energy Bus are three that just come to mind as to read, and just it reinforces the people. Energy Bus is who you surround yourself with. If they're not for you, get them off your bus. I think that's just a quick read. It just reinforces that mentality. Traction, from an organizational perspective, which has helped me a lot, because I'm building this infrastructure to make sure it's sustainable over time. And then obviously Rocket Fuel, I think, just helped me get in alignment of what your company needs to continue to grow. A lot of the times, if you're starting off, smaller, you play an integrator and a visionary role. But eventually, you're going to grow out of that, and you need to pick one, because you need someone. It's like the yin to the yang, and you just need somebody, whether that's a business partner, whether that's a consultant, whether that's an employee. You need those two dynamics to keep growing in a business.
Very true. What is something people would be surprised to know about you?
I'm an introvert.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a surprise or not, but you probably on Instagram, you see me speaking on stages. You see me obviously on lots of podcasts. I'm a leader. I'm a CEO, but truly I am an introvert. And so I have to recharge my social battery.
Oh, how do you do that? That's big, because I'm an introvert as well. And, we have to I was just speaking on stages, what's your favorite way to recharge?
To me, it's just alone time and quiet time. So, for example, we have our annual summit every year. Over 1,000 people come. That's usually when I'm up on a stage speaking. And I want to be able to be so present and give, but a lot of people want your time and attention. And so I just have to carve off some time where I just get to go back to my room and I just quietness and like no talking, no making business decisions, just like recharging. Or sometimes I just need to recharge with like a gossip show or like a Real Housewives or like something that's totally rotting my brain. I know.
Yes. No, there's nothing wrong with that.
It just takes my mind out of like, you know, the day to day. So yeah, Devin is an extrovert. And so like he thrives off being around people. He loves talking to people. We'll be at like a site visit or like at a gym, and he will go until like the lights are off talking to people. Whereas I am like, hey, it's time to go. And I have to like give him the code. I got to go. Like, you know, because I will reach a point, and I feel bad about that, but it's just who I am.
It's who you are. No, but you guys balance each other so well. That's how you're able to work, because of that polarity.
Yeah.
So that's evident. Well, I know we're out of time, so I'm not going to keep you anymore. But Morgan, this was incredibly insightful and interesting. And I appreciate you so much, because I know time is of the essence and it's very limited in your world in this season right now. So the fact that you shared this time with us is incredible. So thank you so much, Morgan.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I love talking about this stuff. I hope, you know, one or two things people can pull out and help them with their business, or just even as a mother or a wife or a woman, you know, to just keep stepping into their purpose and their power.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Thank you, Morgan Kline, CEO of Burn Bootcamp. If y'all have not checked out Burn, please do so. I would highly recommend. And so does Morgan.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, guys.